Everyone, I'm Phil from Following the Nerd, and I'm here at the Braid Theatre this evening for an evening with George Fenton, the world-famous film composer. George, it's a pleasure to meet you. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
Good. You're here tonight hosting an evening with yourself for your music for films and television.
Yeah, I'm a guest of Tim Burton, who is doing this for the Ballymena Arts Festival. And he's going to ask me questions about writing. I'm going to play a little bit on the piano to explain how I think up stuff, and then they've got lots of clips to play and things like that. So I'm looking forward to it actually. I don't do a lot of talking. So it'll be nice, yeah.
Well, I mean, anybody who knows Following the Nerd will know I'm a very big fan of film scores and original soundtracks. Gandhi, without doubt, is one of my favourite films of all time. Aside from the knockout performances by the cast, Ben Kingsley and Edward Fox, your score is more or less a character on its own.
Wow.
And it's there's some certain pieces throughout the film that really spring to my mind. First off, there's the train journey.
Yes.
And we had the wonderful music of India matched perfectly by the cinematography. Can I ask you, how did you get your inspiration for that particular writing?
Well, we're going back a long time now, but I remember the train journey particularly because when I got the job of doing the score for Gandhi, Richard Attenborough asked me to go to Twickenham Studios and look at the film, really to see if I liked it, and which of course he didn't really need to ask me. But up to that point, I'd only done very small projects, small films, television, things like that. And I can remember sitting in the theatre, and I can remember seeing the start of the train journey, and the helicopter pulling out and showing the train going across Africa. And I'd never done anything with a helicopter shot, so I got kind of incredibly excited because I realised now that I was in the big time. This was a real proper movie with helicopters and all of that, and that was literally almost my first impression of the film. I was so sort of stunned by doing the film, and then I saw that and I thought, oh right, great. And so I didn't need much help, as it were, in terms of inspiration, but just a lot of hard work to write the cue for that part.
Well, you go from one visually stunning piece called The Train through to another equally visually stunning but horrific, which is The Massacre at Amistad.
Right.
And the orchestration for that, particularly the massacre really, and then the aftermath.
Yeah.
Totally different contrasting pieces of music,
yeah.
Which are wonderfully reflected on the screen.
Well, the Amritsar massacre, one of the things that I think was a feature of the film was that it wasn't overscored. There wasn't music all the way through or anything like that, and so those key moments, in a way, were lifted by the absence of music elsewhere. And I particularly, one of the absolute dreams for me was not only working with Ravi Shankar, but working with all the other really great Indian musicians. Yes. That were also playing Sultan Khan and Ashish Khan and people like that. And so I will never forget that recording that cue, particularly the aftermath of that cue when the Chennai plays, and because those were special things and have gone on being special for any film composer in the work they do. If they get the opportunity to work with other musicians from different cultures, people that you wouldn't normally come across. Yes. Writing orchestral music, but people of such skill and soul that makes the whole experience really, really special.
Well, you mentioned Ravi Shankar there, who's a wonderful musician. I believe he played the sitar. The Salt March, which begins also with the wonderful Indian music, and then basically swells into the whole. It's more building to a whole crescendo throughout. It starts off small, the little people come, and then by the end, it's just this wonderful piece.
Well, it's almost like a round. It's just this repeated chant that goes on and on and on. And I just had the opportunity with a lot of the music that we did for Gandhi. What I tried to do was to write like a frame around it, so that the Indian music could express itself without being constrained by the presence of the orchestra. And so that was such a sort of long, slow developing thing that it had a chance to be itself, and then I had a chance to put a frame around it, and then I had a chance to build it. So it was very, very satisfying.
Well, I mean, whether you listen to it actually as part of a soundtrack or whether you want it just generally for the film, it's a wonderful piece. I'm just curious, actually, the recording of it. Whenever you were actually in the recording studio, obviously you had the orchestra there. Did you have a experiment in time with actually the Indian musicians?
Yeah, simultaneously though in those days. I mean, they were all there all the time.
Right. And
so we recorded. We recorded at a studio in London called CTS, which now doesn't exist. And I had like the whole group, the Indian group there, and then the orchestra there. So they were right near me, but they were screened off. So they were individually mic'd like you would like a rock.
So that would avoid spillage then coming through from one
spill.
side. Brilliant.
And then the orchestra was in front of me this way. And nearly everything actually we recorded all together, and I'd rehearse them. And when they were ready, and I'd say to the orchestra, okay, we're ready, and let's do it, and we'd do it. Because you get a different spirit, you know, the way that they play, the orchestral musicians, it's different. If it's just coming down headphones, you know, it's not the same thing. Yeah. But if you see them, you're in the room with them, it kind of, it gives the whole thing a sense of occasion.
It's more of like a live performance as opposed to something just sort of recorded.
You get performance that way, so it's really nice, yeah.
Was this also then back then to the rough cut then on the screen behind then, so you'd have an idea for your individual cues and such whenever you're conducting it?
A finished cut on the screen, and yes, everything, and all film music that I record, I do that way with the screen, so I can literally either conduct really to get everybody
gelled up, sort of.
Yeah, and the relationship with the picture, you know, just the way you want it and that kind of thing. And it means also the director can see what's going to happen to his film, which is quite important because you're changing his film for him, you know, in a way.
Very much. I mean, I mentioned earlier that the actual score is like another character, without a doubt. You know,
hopefully it should be, yeah.
Well, obviously, aside from your work with Richard Attenborough and Gandhi, you also work with him again on Shadowlands and Grey Wolf. I mean, have you built up a reputation or a rapport with him over the years, or?
Well, he's. I mean, in many ways, because of Gandhi and then Cry Freedom, he's sort of responsible for my career in many ways in film. I mean, he was the person that sort of discovered me. So, yes, and over the years, I did Gandhi, Cry Freedom, Shadowlands, In Love and War, Grey Owl, like you mentioned, and he's wonderful because he's very musical.
Yes.
But he's also wonderful because he doesn't interfere. You know, he's a marvelous producer as well as being a very good director. So he lets you have your time and he lets you come up with your version of it. And of all the scores, I mean, they've all been very, very special because he has a special. He loves music, so he creates these environments in film where you can do music, and Shadowlands, you know, was a great opportunity.
Shadowlands is beautiful because, I mean, the English countryside, I mean, it's basically you're going from Gandhi with the Indian countryside and Africa, the sweeping landscapes, backed by your wonderful score, of course, then to Shadowlands where basically everybody knows England, but you have a quaint, but it's not an obtrusive score. It's a nice sort of, it's in the background, but you notice it, but you don't notice it, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's very much in the English tradition. You know, for me, it's a mixture of church music, which I wrote for the choir at Magdalen College, and also orchestral music, which is, you know, in the out of the school of Elgar or George Butterworth, Vaughan Williams, that sort of the English tradition of music. So I enjoyed it very much, and it was played by the LSO, who I'd never worked with before that, and that was a big thrill for me.